The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the Morning Brew Café, casting golden stripes across the polished wooden tables. It was a Tuesday, just past 9 o'clock, and the café hummed with its usual rhythm. Business professionals tapped away at laptops, students hunched over thick textbooks, and the espresso machine hissed and gurgled behind the counter. Emma had been working at the Morning Brew for 3 years now. She knew every crack in the floor, every wobble in the chairs, every regular customer by name and order. At 26, she wore her simple white blouse and navy apron with quiet dignity. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a practical ponytail, and her hands moved with practiced efficiency as she wiped down tables and refilled coffee cups. The pay was modest. Some weeks, Emma had to choose between buying groceries or paying for her evening college classes. But she showed up every day with a gentle smile, treating each customer with genuine warmth. This small cafe wasn't just her workplace. It was the place where she felt useful, where she felt she belonged. The bell above the door chimed softly, and Emma glanced up from the table she was cleaning. A man entered, and he carried with him an air of unmistakable wealth. His dark suit fit perfectly, the kind that cost more than Emma made in several months. His hair was styled with careless precision, and his watch caught the sunlight in expensive glints. He looked to be in his early 30s, with sharp features and the confident posture of someone who had never been told no. But it wasn't the man who drew every eye in the cafe. It was the baby in his arms. The infant, dressed in a soft blue onesie, was crying. Not the angry wail of hunger or pain, but a sustained, heartbroken sob that seemed to echo off every wall. The man held the baby awkwardly, like someone carrying a briefcase he didn't know how to set down. His expression was a mixture of frustration and helplessness. Several customers looked up, then quickly looked away. The crying continued. Emma watched as the man, whom she would later learn was named Marcus Bennett, moved to a corner table. He tried to sit, adjusting the baby in his arms, but the crying only intensified. He stood again, bouncing slightly, his jaw tight with tension. The baby's face was red, tiny fists waving in distress. Marcus pulled out his phone with his free hand, balancing it against the baby's back. He tried to make a call, but the crying made conversation impossible. He ended it quickly, running his hand through his hair. Around the cafe, other customers began gathering their things, seeking quieter places to work. Emma set down her tray and cloth. Her manager, Robert, caught her eye from behind the counter and gave a slight nod. She walked slowly toward the corner table, her footsteps light and unhurried. "Excuse me, sir," she said softly, standing a respectful distance away. Marcus looked up, his eyes shadowed with exhaustion. I know, he said before she could continue. "We're disturbing everyone. I just need 5 minutes to figure something out." Emma shook her head gently. "That's not what I was going to say." She paused, looking at the crying infant. "Would you mind if I tried something?" Marcus stared at her for a long moment, as if trying to determine whether this was some kind of trick or judgment. Finally, his shoulders sagged slightly. "Please," he said, the word barely audible over the baby's cries. "I don't know what else to do." Emma stepped forward and extended her arms. There was something in her movement, a natural confidence born not from training but from instinct. Marcus hesitated for only a second before carefully transferring the baby to her. The moment the infant settled against Emma's shoulder, something shifted. She didn't bounce or sway dramatically. Instead, she held the baby close, one hand supporting the small head, the other gently rubbing slow circles on the tiny back. She began to hum, so quietly that it was almost more felt than heard. The melody was simple, wordless, the kind of tune that seemed to exist outside of time. The baby's cries began to soften, breaking into hiccups and shuddering breaths. Emma turned slightly, rocking in the smallest of motions, her whole body relaxed and calm. She continued humming, her eyes half closed, as if nothing else in the world existed except this small, distressed soul who needed comfort. Around the cafe, the noise level dropped. People stopped typing, conversations paused, everyone watched as the impossible happened. Within 2 minutes, the baby's eyes began to droop. The crying stopped completely, replaced by soft, exhausted breathing. The tiny fists unclenched, and one small hand curled against Emma's collar. Another minute passed, and the baby was asleep, mouth slightly open, finally at peace. Emma stood very still, continuing her gentle rocking. She looked up at Marcus, who was staring at her with an expression she couldn't quite read. It might have been relief. It might have been wonder. It might have been something else entirely. "How did you?" Marcus started, then stopped. He shook his head slowly. I've had 4 different nannies try everything today. Nothing worked. Emma smiled softly. Sometimes babies just need to feel safe, she said quietly. They need to feel that the person holding them isn't afraid. Marcus pulled out a chair, sitting heavily as if his legs could no longer support him. I've been trying for hours, he admitted, his voice low. My regular nanny called in sick this morning. The backup nanny quit yesterday. My assistant has never handled a baby. And I have 3 meetings I've already missed. He looked up at Emma again. This is Liam. He's my nephew. My sister was in a car accident 2 months ago. Nothing serious, but she needed surgery and the recovery has been complicated. I've been taking care of him while she heals, but I'm. He paused, the confession heavy on his tongue. I'm not very good at this. Emma adjusted her hold on the sleeping baby, moving carefully to the chair across from Marcus. She sat down slowly, keeping her movements smooth and gentle. Being good at something doesn't happen overnight, she said. Especially with babies. Marcus leaned back in his chair, and for the first time since entering the cafe, his shoulders relaxed. I run a company with 200 employees, he said, almost to himself. I've negotiated $1 million deals. I've given presentations to boardrooms across 3 continents. But a 7-month-old baby defeats me completely. Babies don't care about resumes, Emma said with a small smile. They just care about feeling loved. They sat in silence for a moment, the cafe slowly returning to its normal buzz around them. Emma continued her gentle rocking motion, her hand never stopping its slow circles on Liam's back. Marcus studied her face, this young waitress in her simple uniform who had accomplished what an army of highly paid professionals could not. What's your name? He asked. Emma. He repeated it like he was committing it to memory. I'm Marcus. Marcus Bennett. Emma nodded slightly but didn't react to the name with any recognition. Marcus found this oddly refreshing. Do you have children of your own? He asked. Emma shook her head. No, but I grew up taking care of my younger siblings. 4 of them. My mom worked 2 jobs, so I did a lot of the raising. She looked down at Liam's peaceful face. I understand what it's like to feel overwhelmed. Marcus was quiet for a long moment, watching the rise and fall of his nephew's breathing. I should let you get back to work, he finally said, though he made no move to stand. It's okay, Emma replied. This is the slow hour anyway. Another silence fell, but it was comfortable now, 2 strangers connected by a sleeping baby. Can I ask you something? Marcus said eventually. Of course. Why did you help me? Most people were just glaring, wanting us to leave. Emma considered the question carefully. Because I saw someone who needed help, she said simply. And because that baby needed someone to see past the noise to what he was really saying. What was he saying? That he was scared, that everything felt unfamiliar and overwhelming. That he missed his mom. Emma's voice was gentle. Sometimes we all feel like that, don't we? We just don't have the luxury of crying about it. Marcus felt something tighten in his chest. This waitress, this young woman who probably struggled to pay her bills, had just articulated something he'd been feeling for 2 months but couldn't name. I'm terrified, he admitted suddenly. Every day, my sister trusts me with the most important thing in her life, and I don't know what I'm doing. Emma met his eyes. But you're doing it anyway. You're showing up. You're trying. That's what matters. Marcus blinked, and he realized his eyes were damp. He cleared his throat, looking away briefly. Would you? He started, then paused. Would you consider helping me? I mean, I know you work here, but I could pay you. Whatever you make in a week, I could triple it. Maybe you could teach me what you know, help me figure out how to take care of Liam properly until my sister recovers. Emma looked down at the sleeping baby in her arms, then back at Marcus. She saw in his face not arrogance or entitlement, but genuine vulnerability. Here was a powerful man admitting he needed help, willing to learn. Let me talk to my manager, she said quietly. About my schedule. Marcus nodded, hope flickering across his features. As Emma stood carefully, still cradling Liam, she realized that sometimes the most important moments in life arrive without announcement. They slip in during ordinary mornings, in small cafes, wrapped in the simple act of comforting a crying child. Behind them, the espresso machine hissed. Around them, life continued its normal rhythm. But for Emma and Marcus, everything had quietly, gently changed. Sometimes the greatest gift we can offer is not our wealth or our status, but simply our presence, our patience, and our willingness to see another person's need as worthy of our time. And sometimes, that's enough to change everything.